does inventories too much more professionally than we do, is here with us today. He's going to talk to us about.
I'm sure that's not true.
It totally is. But yeah, so with food, let us know if we can still help you. Okay, we're still definitely here and willing to help out with food. But tonight we're going to talk about water. And one other thing before we dive into water is I mentioned Joseph from Prep 7. He's going to show us an app really quick. And there's a handout. Did that go around? Everyone has a handout there that is describing an app called Harbor. And that app is kind of just an emergency prep app that can help you kind of organize yourself, help us collaborate. And he's going to tell us a little bit more about that right now. In fact, if you don't mind, Joseph.
Yep. Thank you, Matt.
And it's free, just so everyone knows, completely.
Pause that some other things, like food.
Will you please use the mic?
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry.
There's a switch.
Now we can, well, that's pretty loud.
You're welcome.
Okay, so hopefully everybody got one of these handouts. So, and just, I figured, hopefully this is not too long-winded, but I just thought that the best thing to do maybe to just introduce myself a little bit. And I met Matt here in your ward. So again, my name is Joseph. I started a company with my father called Prep 7, and we're just super passionate about helping people get prepared holistically in many different ways. And your ward has been doing more than I've seen any other ward or organization do ever across all of Utah. So a round of applause for all of you guys. I'm only here to tell you about this app called Harbor. There's a company out of California called Harbor that launched in January 2020, just before the pandemic started. They actually invented the pandemic so they could have an app before it happened. They had been working on it for years, and it's essentially, like Matt said, it's a family preparedness app. You can add emergency contacts to the app. There is a premium thing you can pay for, but with the free version, you can get a lot of different features. You can track your inventory, so as these months progress, and as you get water and food, and you have fire extinguishers and things like that, it will help you in a very easy way be more prepared. And so as these months progress, you may be hearing more about this app as it moves on. One of the coolest things about this app is that it's not just an app, and that is that one of the biggest problems that I see a lot here in Utah is that in a single ward, there's a lot of turnover in callings, right? Emergency preparedness specialists may come, your ward, more emergency preparedness specialists probably never lose their callings because of how good they are. So, but there is turnover in a sense, right? People are released and recalled. Also from ward to ward, here in Utah, every street corner, there's another ward with a whole set of emergency preparedness specialists. And what I see all the time is a very big duplication of effort from one ward to the next. Literally, 2 streets down, 3 streets down. A lot of those ward members are doing the same research that this ward is doing, for example, right? And so what we are trying to do is minimize that and to really streamline and make it much more easy to be prepared in Utah, which your ward is doing. And one of the ways that this company called Harbor does it, most of them are not members. They have one member employee, which probably kind of slides them the good information under the table, because they have what's called an employer program, where employers like Tesla and Netflix and Nike and companies like that right now provide this employee benefit to their employees, where they all get access to this app, and the employer gets aggregated data reports on how prepared and how at risk their employees are of earthquakes or of floods or whatever it is based on their zip code. So we have convinced Harbor to test 3 stakes for free, and your stake is one of the stakes that has decided to try this. So please don't waste it if you can. Download the app if you can, and start using it. Create an account, and essentially, your ward leadership will not get individual data. It's all anonymous, but it basically will help describe to your ward, and hopefully, we're pushing this on a church-wide level basis right now, but testing it with just 3 stakes. So your stake in this ward, hopefully this pilot goes well, and it's a useful app for all of you, so that the rest of the church may one day find use in knowing, well, hey, this stake is doing very, very well in preparedness. What can we learn from this stake to apply to this other stake? And right now there's just not a lot of data about that. So kind of trying to collect more data around that, and hopefully your ward can kind of spread or tread the first course. So that's everything for me.
Hey, Joseph, quick question.
Yes.
Any idea, since you've been in communication with Harbor, any idea when it's going to be available for Android?
This year is the plan. Sometime this year. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know if they have an exact date yet.
They have a waiting list on that.
They do have a waiting list. Yeah. If you go to the link and you don't have an iOS device, you can join the waiting list. You'll get an email when it's available, and you can download at that point.
It's called Harbor Home Safety.
Yes. Their website is helloharbor.com. But use this URL because...
I gotta use that.
Yeah, use this URL because it'll actually ask you what stake you're in. So create an account using this QR code. It'll ask you what stake you're in. There are only 3 stakes to choose from, and you can create an account through that little link. It's normally literally for a single organization like a ward or a stake, $10,000 to $75,000 a year normally to use this, and we've convinced them to just trial it for us for now. So use it wisely, and hopefully it's helpful. Let us know.
Awesome. Thank you, Joseph. Okay, so water now. So as you remember, we have 6 months, right, that we're doing here in neighborhood inventory, food, and this is where we're at right now in water. Next month will be nutrition and sanitation, and then fuel, clothing, shelter, and then skills. So tonight we're going to talk about storage. This is the most common, this is the category we're all the most familiar with, right? That's that huge canister, other barrels around. And Stacy and Jackie are going to talk to us about that. Then we're going to talk about collection, and we're going to talk about filtering. And there's a couple miscellaneous things real quick here. But at the outset, just to know, right, quantities, so we are calibrating the need correctly. You have a piece of paper there that was handed out. This one right here that says water on it. And you'll see on that, you'll see quantities in there, okay? Quantities needed. And a person drinks 182 gallons a year, okay, a half gallon a day. So 910 gallons for 5 people would be needed just for drinking if you were looking at a household of 5. And then probably another 400 to 500 per person for cooking, cleaning, and washing. If you were taking a shower every other day, we're going to talk a little bit about how that might still be possible, even if you were to lose water. Using 2 gallons a day would require 365 gallons per person. If you did every 3rd day, just smelled a little bit more, then 243 gallons per person. So if you look at it together, a reasonable sum might be that you would need 182 gallons for drinking, 364, this is breaking down these numbers, for cooking and cleaning, and 243 for washing, which would be 789 gallons for one person, right? The church has recommended that we have a minimum of 2 gallons per day, which would be 730 gallons per person. So they're pretty close to the line. We break that apart. 730 gallons per person for a year. And, you know, who knows how long you would need that, but that's how that kind of breaks down. And so that seems like a ton, right? That's almost 800 gallons for one person. That's a 250 gallon tank, so you're still not even close, right? But before the end of the night, you'll see that it's easy to get the amount that you need for your family for all of these purposes, drinking, cleaning, and washing for a year. But let's start with the most commonly known category of of storage, and I'll give this to Jackie and to Stacy.
I guess I'm going first. So we found this lovely blue 55-gallon water barrel over here. Can everybody see it? It's probably the most cost-effective barrel that we found. It holds 55 gallons. It's a watertight sealed. It doesn't have a lid. You can easily store it in your garage or your cold food storage. They're found at Alpine Food Storage. They're $70. Jackie has many, right? They are stackable as well, so it's to take up less space. You can stack them on top of each other. And then I think that's all I
How
do.
do you water out? Does that have speed?
Yes. I will turn the time over to Jackie. She's the expert.
I'm gonna come, yeah.
Gordon.
Craig's gonna stand there and be our Vanna. So, there's the
Goes like this.
pump. And or you can get a siphon. If you're only gonna get one, I say get the pump. Even better is to have both, because they work differently. Siphon is gravity powered.
The little 2-inch tap, you can get one that actually has a valve on it. So you can screw that, but then the barrel would have to be on its side to take advantage of that.
Okay, so Peggy Kirkham's brother-in-law, remind me your name. Clark. Like Clark Kent, Superman. Okay, I can remember that. Okay, he says if you store your barrel on the side, you can put a valve on it, and that helps the water come out easier too. So over here I have this beautiful, everything you need to fill your water barrel. And we have 55-gallon instructions over here, so make sure to pick up a copy of that. Also, P.S., everything is listed on chep.live. So links galore, and all this information we will this week get put on there for you. So yes, there's tons of things over here. Also, you want to make sure to get your water treatment drops. There's some that have been on the market for decades, and those are the ones we recommend because they have been proven safe. Thanks, Jana. They will keep your tap water good for 5 years. And it's 1 bottle per 55 gallon. And then the other thing you want to make sure is to use a food grade hose. That is news to some people. Your regular garden hose can leach chemicals. You do not want that in our water. So make sure to get a food grade RV hose. I actually have an extra brand new one that we are going to have out available to loan out to you if you would like to just borrow it. Feel free to talk to me about that.
Yeah, for filling.
Okay.
For filling.
Like $25, they're not expensive.
Yeah, they're not expensive, maybe 25 bucks. My pro tip is go measure. You might need 2 hoses, in which case we have a little recommended connector over there too, you can look at. Okay, and then another pro tip. Oh, let's hear your question.
Sorry, can you get those at Alpine as well?
Yes, so basically all of the things on that top thing are from Alpine Food Storage. And there are a few that I've listed available elsewhere. Amazon's the biggest one.
Great.
They're an RV hose. You can get them at Walmart.
Yeah.
No,
Special.
okay.
Yeah, the hoses
Great.
you can get at lots of
Okay.
places, such as Walmart. Okay. I think those are
There's
the
the
main
tap over there.
things.
You want to talk about?
Oh yeah, make sure you have the right wrench. I went to help Sister Picard do hers and we didn't have a wrench. So you definitely need that to help you undo the little bung on the top. And you can buy those at Alpine as well. Oh, and then, oh yes, okay, so my next door neighbor, I'm gonna pick on Thomas Fischetti, who's not here because he has a newborn. After the fire, he stocked up on these stackable 5-gallon because, let's say there's an earthquake and the roads are torn up and you can't just cruise on out of here. You could just grab a couple of those water and hit the hiking trail if you had to, I guess. I don't know. Anything else?
Not that I have, I think Nikki had something that she just talked about.
Nikki has something to say.
Just about, just paying attention to where you can get extra water, right? You were talking about that, and then we'll talk really quickly about what's at Costco right now, too.
Okay, I don't know what you mean by paying attention to it.
We were just, I dragged you because the other day we were talking about you just like find water bottles and just fill them, just put them aside and.
Again, I like to work from the sense of we wash our hands with it, right? If you can't do anything else, you can fill up, but as long as you have space, right? This is the way our grandmothers did it, right? The only thing is I heard to use specifically juice bottles. If you're gonna fill these up, you have to rotate them out occasionally. And something about the thickness of the juice bottles over, you can't use milk, anything that had milk, you cannot fill those up. I think, is that the only thing you can't use? I feel like it's just milk. Anyway, so I just want to say, if you don't have any money, you have juice bottles. If you don't, I have juice bottles for you.
I'm here to tell you that don't use the pre-packaged gallon water bottles
Oh, really?
that
Why
you
is
get
that?
because they're too thin.
Oh, really?
I'm here to tell you that they break. In the pantry, they break very well.
Really? Okay, that must be why they said you gotta get the thick juice
Yeah,
ones.
they're
Yeah.
cheap, so yeah.
I've used the 2-liter pop bottles, plastic bottles, and they've stored for years.
Yeah.
That's what I remember, yeah, for like, I know, my grandma had them for like 30 or 40 years, so, and they lasted the whole time, but you do have to dump them out.
Microphone pop bottles for the recording.
Oh, soda pop bottles for the TV.
We also have the fact that water doesn't expire, but it does become contaminated, and if you have the drops, the water's still fine.
The drops.
So as long as you have.
Oh, the drops, yeah,
As
the
long as
drops
you have
over there.
drops, it's still.
So if you
it's
never
still
had
drinkable.
done this and you put the drops in, you're still.
Well, water over time can build up pathogens, especially if you don't sterilize the bottles and you just pour water in it. And so if you just have the drops, you're fine.
Yeah, and we'll talk
Spoken
about
from a
filtration,
scientist.
too.
Yeah.
Remember, not all water's for drinking too,
Yeah.
right? You could use.
Yeah, and for me, that's the greatest thing of this is like washing, shower, just washing, you know, that kind of stuff. So, anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, and then one other thing is that we found out just before we started that, those 16.9 ounce little containers of water, they've been kind of scarce lately, right? Just they've been kind of hard to find, but Costco right now has a 40 pack of those for $3.19, and 3 of those 40 packs would be enough for a person for 2 weeks. So that brings me to the last part of storage, okay? We wrap up storage here. This is kind of the most straightforward category of this, right? We've all heard about storage for a long time, but how much is enough, right? You could fill your whole basement with stuff, and you wouldn't have the amount to match what you have in your food. You wouldn't be able to use a year's supply of food with that much water, unless there's just one of you. If you have a household full of people, you just wouldn't be able to do it. So how much are we supposed to have? How much should we have? How much is reasonable, advisable? So you see on there that that paper on that container there, the church often speaks to 2 weeks, having 2 weeks of water. Having 2 to 4 weeks of water is on hand is not a bad idea, but I would not advise trying to shoot for a year in terms of what you have in your house. Unless, I mean, if you want to have a good way to move your kids out and just take the space that they occupy and put water there, then that might be a good way.
If you have a swimming pool.
Yeah, a swimming pool.
Don't the Grants have a swimming pool?
They actually have a saltwater swimming pool. So it's potable for washing and whatnot. But also, if you don't have a tankless water heater, that's a water supply.
Right.
Yep, definitely count that.
You have to repeat this stuff.
Yes.
If you don't have a tankless water heater, you can use that as well. That's definitely part of your supply.
To put in a word for the 16.9 water bottles, if you had to leave quickly, a 24 pack is about 25 pounds, so the wife could put that in the car, to have some of those on hand. If a neighbor or someone came and said, if you have any water, to hand a couple of those out instead of taking your 5 gallon and pouring a bunch. So in an emergency, you had to evacuate, it would be good to have some of those small bottles.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because that reminded me that there was one last piece that we were going to talk about for storage itself, and that is our 72-hour kits, and Nikki was going to speak to that real quick.
Okay, so when you are on the move, you can't take too much water with you, but this is what, a half gallon?
2 of them. Yeah.
Two of them as a half
One
gallon.
on each side, goes a half gallon.
And so if you could keep a couple of those with you, and then if you actually had, is it in here?
It's in the lid.
If you had with you these filters, these are new development, right?
Yeah, it's pretty new technology.
Yeah. So if you had that with you, you could, if you came to any water source or anything, you could just filter through that. And they actually directly attach to the water bottle, so you could refill what you have. So you just need to take enough that you could refill. You know, it depends on how much you want to carry, right? It's too much, but great to be able to put in your car.
With those things, do you drink right out of that, or you squeeze it through into the water bottle? Is that kind of how they work?
You can drink right out of this. So that's
Dirty water goes in the
you
bag.
can drink right out of it. Dirty water in there, drink right out of it. You can screw it, as she said, onto a water bottle, fill that up with dirty water, screw that on, and drink through it.
Is that much?
We're going to talk more about this in a few minutes.
This is like new technology.
This is a really big key to being able to be ready with water.
Yeah, so if you could throw this in your car too if you were leaving, yeah.
Bear in mind, not all water sources are gonna be filtered for that and be drinkable, because you've got, that'll filter out,
What's the
major
rating
pathogens
on
and
this?
things, so read through what it is, because some water sources will literally have arsenic, cyanide, all sorts of
We're
different
gonna
kinds of
talk
things
about
in
that.
it from springs, so you can't just take
Yeah.
any water source and think it's gonna be clean.
Sure,
Does
yeah.
anyone drink the water that's coming out onto the?
Yeah, I have. My kids drink out of it. Only when they're really thirsty. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot more about filtration, so don't worry about that. We'll definitely dive into that. Okay, but that is storage. Okay, that's the most straightforward category. Now it's going to get a little bit weird. More interesting in terms of just like maybe things you haven't thought of before. And for me, this category of collection was part of my kind of brother of Jared moment, where I was feeling like I should do more for my food storage and get a better year's supply, or long-term food storage supply. And I couldn't get over the fact that I would never really be able to use it here because I wouldn't have the water to go along with it. I just couldn't figure that part out. It didn't make sense to me. And so I went a couple weeks and I was praying about it, thinking about it. And middle of the night, I wake up and just this thought is in my head, tarps. And I was like, tarps, and I pull out my phone, my calculator, and I do a couple little quick calculations, and I'm like, a 10 by 10 tarp, how much would that capture just one of our normal rainstorms, right? So pull that out, do a calculation, and find that in a half-inch rainstorm, that would capture 31 gallons, just one 10 by 10 tarp. In an inch rainstorm, it would capture 62 gallons. A single tarp. So you see that tarp on the ground right there? That's a little bit compacted. It's not quite its full 10 by 10. But that single 10 by 10 tarp would capture 80 gallons. 62 gallons in a 1 inch rainstorm.
For context, the 2 days of rain we had last week was 1.5.
So I got 2.2 at my house.
I got 1.5.
Well, your house is a little bit in a kind of rain shadow. I think that it was kind of commensurate with like obedience. Anyway, it was a lot, right? We all know that was a lot, and it was expendable. So yeah, let's do that, right? Let's look at that. A 10 by 10 tarp in that event at my house would have captured 135 gallons. Okay, just that single rain event. And you'll see on this sheet, this water sheet here, if you look at it, I can't remember if we put, Craig, the monthly rain averages.
I think it's on that handout, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, I think that's, there it is. If you look at the bottom part there, the third piece there, you can see kind of, at least an average of an inch per month. And I was thinking this, and I'm sitting there tonight, so I just woke up in the middle of the night, and I'm like, that's it. That's how I could do it easily. I could easily do that. If I had 5 of those tarps in my, just sitting in my garage, and I could utilize those over the space of a year based on those averages, the annual average of 11 inches per year, I would be able to get 3,500 gallons just with that. Okay, and that's setting aside what you can get through your downspouts. It's setting aside what you can get through gathering up snow. Those are the 2 other methods that are kind of pretty straightforward methods that you could utilize. And so I'm all excited, thinking like, that's crazy. And I think I woke my wife up, and she was so excited that she looked at me and she said, "What are you talking about?" And she went back to sleep. But I know deep down inside she was really, really excited about that. And when she was more awake, she did. She was more enthused. But yes.
Utah does allow you legally to collect uranium.
Yes. Yeah, there's some local limitations on quantities, but so let's talk about this. So the tarp thing. So if you had 5 of those are $14 each at Walmart. If you had 5 of those just sitting in your garage, all I did with mine, and I don't know if I printed this picture, but is just lifted the edges, and I put it. Of course, I ran this in a storm, right? I put it out, set it up, got the water out of it, and it was just right where it was supposed to be, and I was all excited about it. And then I just dumped it on the grouse. But it would be huge. And I was going to say, so that's 5 of those. That's the cheapest way to go about it, right? That's a 10 mil. You need to have it at least be 10 mil in thickness. That's what those are. But then later on, I came across one that was 45 feet long by 14, and they're these used billboard tarps that vinyl, they're UV proof, and that tarp, if I had that thing out, just a single one, and didn't worry about having 5, because that was the one thing I didn't love in my little experiment, is having 5 of those things out. I was thinking this would be, you don't have to dig a hole or anything. All I do is put rocks along the edges to lift it up and to trap it. And I have a picture of this I can show you on my phone of my nursery set up in the backyard when I did it. It was easy to do, but if I just had one single one, it'd be a lot easier. And that big one, which I am going to order a bunch of these are more expensive. They're about $135, but there's a link to them on that product sheet. So if you see the,
product sheets on the food night.
okay, on that food night handout, that bottom QR code, that has links to all the stuff we're talking about tonight. It says product info link. That's on the food night one, which may not be handed out. If it's not, we'll pass that around. If so, yeah, we're going to pass that out. But you'll see a link to where you can buy that single tarp, or a link to the Walmart ones, any of those tarps if you want to go on there and grab that. Okay, that one in our single rain event would have captured 940 gallons. So one rain event would have captured 940 gallons, and over the course of a year, 4,673 gallons. And I didn't put it together when I woke up in the middle of the night and thought through the 3,500 gallons that the 5 would capture. But I later found out that was exactly what my family would need for a year. As I calculated that 3,500 gallons for the 5 people that we have.
And it goes from the tarp into what?
Okay, so that's the next layer, right? So we got the tarp, it's there, so what do you do with it? Okay.
Just real quick, how big was that tarp? The large one?
45 by 14, and it's $130, and there's a link to it on there if you want to get that one. It's more expensive, but it's, again, that's one and done. You just lay that thing out and you have all you needed. But I am getting some. If anyone wants to join this one big bulk order we're going to do, you can do that too, and get that tarp.
I put an 8x10 over my patio furniture before the big storm happened, and I got bungee cords and attached it to my deck. And then I went, after the first rain, I went out with a mug like this big, and it took me, I don't know how many to get the rain out. And because I wanted to fluff it, to get, so it's not all deep.
Right.
And then it stormed again, and I had to go out again, and oh my gosh, I just kept shoveling out the water and shoveling.
It's amazing, right, how much Mother Nature will give us if we just are ready to capture it, right? Okay, so it is, the pinch point here is what do you do with it? And it's not about having buckets and barrels full of water in your house. It's about having the ability to collect it and then store it once it's collected, right? So that's what this is here. Okay, these are Walmart trash cans. Okay, just some standard ones, $9.99. These ones on top. These ones are $25 with wheels on the bottom. Okay. Having roughly 10 of these at $10 each, and 8 to 10 of these give you somewhere around, like, that's about what we have, and we have 700 gallons total. Plus we have our 2 trash cans that we already have from the city, which are 100 gallons each. So we end up being, and we have one other, we end up being around 1,000 gallons. And that's, for a family of 5, that is great. Having somewhere around 200 gallons per person to 250 gallons per person of storage capacity is a good place to aim for, so you can capture all the rain that you would get through tarps or through downspouts. And so what we're going to do is, if we lost water, we put these we put these garbage cans underneath our downspouts, and we would use these wheeled ones, and we can move around to get the water out of our tarps.
How do you get that under your downspout?
Well, this is a bad situation. You cut your downspout. You cut your downspout, and you put this underneath it. Yeah, it's probably not worth it. That's expensive stuff. Aluminum. Okay, so how do you capture it, right? So siphon is one way to capture it. And we have a link to this one and a longer one. There's a 20-foot one that's like this. You set it there. You put the other end in one of these. And by the way, lids are very important for this to work, because you lose it by evaporation. So these, all the ones that we have linked on that product page, all have lids with them. You set this in there, the hose would go onto your tarp, and you pump it. And what I ended up doing when I actually was in that situation was that I started with just a 5-gallon bucket, and I just scooped a bunch of it, and then I did the rest of it with the siphon. And once you get it going, it goes. It pressure feeds. You know, anyone been to California and seen the LA aqueduct running straight uphill? You can get it to run without having to pump every single push of it. But that's how you capture it. You put it into trash cans, and you might say, well, these are not BPA-free, food-grade trash cans, right? And they're not. Okay, so would you be able to drink out of these?
You filter it first.
Okay, so now we move to this, right? Okay, so these bags, these are gravity fed, and this stuff is not expensive. This bag right here, this is what I would do when it was in my trash can. I would just scoop the water out. I would set it right here, and it has a hose, and it connects to that same filter you just saw. The Sawyer Squeeze is this. This is the best filter we found when we did all of our research on this, and it is new technology. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about it, but it's in there. I'm going to open this up. Okay, and then the water comes through from the bag. Spray it on everyone. I won't run this very long, or everyone will have to go to the bathroom. But
I'm going to hold it up so you can see it.
yeah, if you would. So the Sawyer Squeeze will filter 500 gallons in a day.
Just want to show you how fast it's coming out.
Okay, and
Can you move it to the other side of the pole? Yeah,
Okay, so that bucket right there does need to be food grade, right? That is food grade. That's the side where you have to have food grade or else you would have a problem. But that is, and just like this is, which is another, this falls in, you can bring that with you. This completely collapses. There's a link to these on there too. 2.5 or 5 gallon. And then just a little bit about, yeah, there's another one there. A little bit about this filter. Okay, so this filter I think is pretty special. There's a few different options when we talk about filtration. And you can see down here we have, this is what Craig and I used to always use on campouts, these little pump filters.
They're heavy and they take.
Can you hold it up, Matt?
Yeah, not with your microphone though.
The way it works is we would take this camping all the time, and this little piece, you basically put this in the lake or river or whatever, that part floats so it doesn't get down in the dirt, and then you just have to pump this. And it takes.
And we would send the kids to go do it.
Send the kids, just to fill this right here would take us probably like 30 minutes or so of just going like this, a few drops at a time. It's such a pain. Bulky, heavy. Those ones are what we use now.
The brakes are screwed too.
Yeah, and actually that's happened. So whenever we go, we always bring, each of us would bring one because sometimes you get a crack or it breaks. These aren't bad to have. This is what the filter looks like inside of them. It's the clay filter, right? You've already seen before.
So yeah, several, and then we have a replacement cartridge and things like that. There's the pills, right? There's UV. Where's the UV one? Different forms of which box is it in?
Right here.
Yeah.
No, it's not that one. But anyway, there's a UV filter. There's several different ways to filter water. But I really, for me, this is what we're going to be doing because this company, Sawyer, and what it's done, there's a K2 one that's similar to it, is really amazing.
What's it called?
This is called the Sawyer Squeeze. Okay, it's $30. And it filters 100,000 gallons before it's expired. 100,000 gallons, yeah.
For those filters that you put in the water, I found using a coffee filter and rubber banding it will keep your filter from plugging up with sand or other debris. Or if you have to collect water that might have some contaminants or something, putting it through that coffee filter, then when you go
get the rough stuff out.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. Yeah.
And the whole stack is less than $1, so that it's well worth having into your water store.
Yeah, especially you're dealing with dirty water. Okay, so a little bit more on
question on that Sawyer Squeeze. So when I go on Amazon to look at them, it looks like there's a kind that's attached to the bag. Is that the same as that one?
Yeah. So you're buying this, and then there's a link to this too. And this is a bag that we found that was the best one. There's two here. This one had some size. We had to convert something to make the size work on this one. It's great too, but this was the one that was plug and play. It comes with this attachment. You buy this bag and you buy that filter. $30 and $30, and like this is unlimited essentially. We're gonna buy two. They're $30 each. We're gonna buy two in case we had one break, but it will filter up to 100,000 gallons. It comes with this. This is your little. You push this from the back side if it gets clogged, and it cleans out the filter, and you're good to go again. Same idea as was described there. Filters 99.999% of bacteria such as Salmonella, cholera. Leptospirosis, E. coli, and protozoa such as Giardia, Cryptosporidium, and then it shows the citations to where that was all tested. It also filters 100% of microplastics. Okay, so that's why these work. You filter it through that, you would have the ability, and just huge quantity, you can fill this up. You know, this is just chugging, and it will fill up in less than a half an hour, 15, 20 minutes. Okay, and that's the gravity system you can do with it, or you can use it, as you saw Nikki describe, just right with something you fill up and you just drink straight from it, or you squeeze it into something else if you wanted to squeeze it into something bigger. Okay, any other questions about that filtration?
So you mentioned that you had one break
already? No, I've not had any of those break. I was talking about those old pump ones. Those are a lot more
Plastic.
susceptible to that.
Kids drop them on rocks and stuff, they break. Yeah, they're less.
Throw them in the lake, at each other.
Sorry. The tarp, I know I could fashion away in my head, but I don't know if you found the best way to like rig it up to collect.
I have a picture and I was gonna
Is it
print
ropes
it.
you did, or?
No,
You lay it on?
I didn't. All I did was I just got those little 2-foot stakes at Home Depot and I put it around the outside and I put a few rocks on the inside and it stayed put in wind, in strong wind. And it worked just fine.
And it funneled into what?
It just sat there. It just sat there and then I just scooped it up. Or what I would do is I would just start that siphon going and then I would leave it there and it would just siphon all that water into there. It's just a basin.
If you Google water collection, there's a whole bunch of ideas. Like sometimes people use like T-posts
Yeah,
and
there's
hook it
different ways
onto
to do it.
and have it funnel into like a bucket or something like that. Or, you know, in our neighborhood, we've got these rock walls, right? So you could just lay it on the grass above the rock wall and then have it like go down into something below the rock wall. I mean, there's a lot of different ways, but the idea is using plastic to capture the water and put it.
A lot of different ways to do it. I could share with you the 50 or so text exchange that Craig and I have had about what about this? Yeah, I thought about that, but you have to dig a hole to put it in, or you have to, there's a tension problem, or you know, whatever it is. There's different ways to do it. And
Next time it rains, go to Matt's house.
you can see what I did, but I don't have it perfected. The thing that is clear to me and that feels right to me and feels important is have the ability to capture it. Take care of it if something happens when something happens.
Well, if you have a deck, you know, I just on the corner post, got the bungee cords, attached it, and I wasn't even collecting water, I was just covering for my furniture, and it collected just great.
Yeah.
I couldn't even move it, so.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea and way to use it. So a lot of different things, and again, there's no one size fits all for anyone. These are ideas to think about, right? I'm not saying this is what you should all do. Things to think about, things that have felt important for us, and things that, what I do know about it is that it would give you what you needed. You had these sitting on your downspouts, you had something, the ability to capture water, and then of course in the wintertime, you could make snowmen and throw the snow into a barrel, right? And but this is super simplistic, but this is really kind of the linchpin, that the centerpiece, that if you have the ability to capture what comes in a rainstorm, like most of us, I sat out there, we got a picture from the Barkers of the soccer field, right, when it rained, and just looked down and like, all that water. Because this is where my head's at right now. Like, we need to go get that. Someone needs to go get that water, right? But you would have that ability to do it. You just have to have a place to be able to store it. Okay, last thing, and then we're ready to wrap up. Craig is just going to talk about water real quick.
You want to talk about the shower too?
Oh, in the shower, yes.
So I'll talk about the shower first. I probably should shoot my So just a quick note to the shower. So Matt kind of alluded to this when he was talking about water and having enough water to be able to like shower. I mean, one of the next topics we're going to talk about is sanitation, which is a very important one, and showering and being clean is part of that. So we found some shower products that are helpful. So this is just like a camping shower. So this is advertised as being like a solar heated camping shower. So the instructions on this one say to fill it up with water and then have the clear side, so this is clear right here, put that in the sun, it warms it up, and then you can hang it somewhere to take a shower with, right? And then this right here, this is actually the 6-foot version, but just because of space, we brought this one instead of 8-foot version, but there's an 8-foot version that's advertised as like a shower, privacy tent, and you can hang that inside and then, obviously take a shower with it. So anyway, just a few products that we found that could be a good idea. And then for the well, so as we, nerd out and send texts back and forth about all the different ideas of water, not that we need any water in our neighborhood since we have water coming up all over the place, but in case we did, one of the products that I found was an emergency well kit. So you could actually just Google emergency well kit and find this. But I'll pass this around just so you guys can see this. And what this is there's a guy that created this. And what this is basically PVC with a blade that will dig the hole. And it's just really simple, but it will go down, there's 25-foot and also 50-foot kits. So you basically drill down, put a pipe in it, and then it has a little water pump that can pump it out. So we were looking at these and they cost around, they were like $6.99. I actually called the guy and talked to him a little bit about it, and he said that we could get one for like $500, and then we could get some like parts to just make it longer and that kind of thing, just from like a regular hardware store. But anyway, so for around, I would say like $1,000 to $1,200, we could get a couple of these for the neighborhood and have them in strategic spots in the neighborhood. And in lieu of Matt and I buying it, we thought we might throw the idea out there to see if anybody's interested. So if you guys are interested in like contributing to that, we could have them on hand for our neighborhood. That's an option. But I'll pass these around so you guys can see this. This link right here goes to a little video to help you catch the vision of how it is. So the guy in this video basically like digs the hole and puts it all together, and it's working within, an hour or two. Like, it's pretty interesting how it all works. But anyways, that's an option as far as that goes. Yeah, good question.
Like a water table in Utah, like how deep is?
It depends, yeah, that's a
Depends
good
where you
question.
are. We all know where ours is shallowest. Right?
We'll just tap into, yeah.
I think it's Dave Howell's.
The house, we'll just tap into that, yeah. But yeah, I mean, like I said, depending on depending on like where water is and availability, maybe we don't need this, but it's probably a good idea to have it just in case. Very mobile in case we need to move or whatever. But having that as like a clean water source.
Do you need a permit to do that?
Not during it.
In the wild, wild west, you don't need one.
Yeah, if we were to do it now, we could get in trouble.
So either we all buy it and use it, or else you two buy it and we all use it?
Yeah.
It's kind of like
It's like free shares. It's just like free shares.
It's kind of like your free shares.
Would you sign me up for the use part?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there anyone in the Washington state that has sump pumps because they tend to?
Yes. The Howells do. I just saw it.
Several in the
So
neighborhood.
then if you had those labeled, then if
Right.
you needed water, there's a source there.
Yeah, that's why they're not here tonight. They have no need of water. I just had a conversation with them. They're like, yeah, we're good for water.
I'm not gonna make it out.
They're just trying to keep it out. But the rest of you, you think like, well, there's the pool, right? You can go get some water from the pool. You can go get that water that's spilling over constantly not far from here. And then you're hauling it up in 5-gallon buckets to your house over and over and over again. And you're exerting all that energy, and you're eating more food, and you're needing more water. So, those are things that are there, right? But if you think about the storage functions, the storage canisters, as something that gets you to your first rainstorm, that's how I view them. Something to get you for those first couple weeks, few weeks, and then just have the ability to capture water as it comes. And that is it. That is all. You can say you've seen it all now as we've wrapped up with a well, right?
Were you going to say something about the birthday again?
Oh yes. In fact, thank you for that, Jack. Jack was going to talk about that.
Also, since we just had the power outage, P.S., we may not be able to have our water pumped up to us in the event of a power outage. I did not know that. That is a thing. So, this is my Berkey. This is a royal size. They come in a ton of different sizes. It's gravity powered. I bought this instead of reverse osmosis. It's rated just as good as reverse osmosis. It's a purifier, not just a filter. So you get like a pitcher of water and dump it in the top right here. And the only downside to this, it is not nearly as speedy as this guy right here. I'll fill this up and I'll have a cup of glass I can drink in maybe 15, 20 minutes. It will take a few hours for if you fill this whole top portion before it's all been filtered. So you do have to keep in mind, it takes a little bit of time. But this is a really delicious and tasty. Some people prefer it to reverse osmosis because it leaves in the minerals. So it's great.
Yeah, I meant to describe that as one of the options here instead of this, because you could get water from what you had collected and you could pour it into that, right? Yeah. Well, we did talk about the big one, but one thing to know about that one, that 250-gallon monster right there, we have a pretty good price to those for Joseph, and there's a sign up for that for $399 for those. I mean, they're a lot, but they're a lot of water also. This is the Barkers. Did I miss anything about that? There's a sign up for it.
You might want to touch on all the sign-up sheets we do have, right? Like in case people.
Yeah, so help me with all the sign-up sheets, and then we'll go to this question. So we got an inventory sign-up sheet. If you haven't done that for food, then there's one for Prep 7 if you want to do that through Joseph on the caloric approach, a more professional approach. There's a sign-up for that tank there if you want them. There's this. This is more informal. I'm just going to go buy these, and if people want to pay before we get them, then I'll just do a big bulk order on that big tarp. And did I miss the other sign-up sheet? And the well, yeah, and go to Craig for that sign-up sheet. You had a question? Someone had a question?
I was just wondering if you had come across any, like, recommended best way to store water. So is it better to store it in the 250 or in the 55, or is it really doesn't make any difference?
Anyone have an opinion on this? Yeah.
That 55-gallon drum, when full, is 451 pounds, because water is 8.2 pounds per gallon. So if you think about long-term storage, you need to have it in a place where you're not going to move it.
Right.
And my brother used a lot of these 55-gallon drums outside. You left about 3 inches from the top, and you don't know they would freeze in winter. He's never had those barrels.
Okay, so you're talking about the weight of the 55-gallon. They do make crates you can put them on, so you could move them around some. But I think it's kind of the most intuitive part of that is the bigger it is, the more you know you have to go to it, as opposed to bring it around to where you're at. Things to think about are the kinds of the lids that remove completely, so you could get it out quicker versus the dispenser. Some of that stuff you can kind of just look at the way it's built and say, well, what would be the most convenient method for me? But I view those as just such short-term things that I don't. Like most of my focus is on like, how would I do it if I really needed to use this for a long period of time? I can handle some inconvenience for a couple of weeks. I'd be mostly probably going on price as long as it's food safe.
But Matt, one thing we didn't touch on, I think there's a handout for this. On those 55-gallon barrels, a lot of people don't realize that if you put them right on your concrete, they can actually leach chemicals in from the concrete. So it's recommended to put it on top of wood or a pallet or something that's going to create that barrier for you there.
Everyone's ready to throw away all their water, right? I use the wrong hose. I put it on my concrete. Maybe there's nutrients in the concrete too. Maybe there's good stuff.
There's also a lot of videos online, if you want to look them up. Australia's been dealing with a lot of drought on a regular basis on how to continually reuse water. So water is not a one-use thing.
Right.
You can use it to wash your dishes, and then that dishwater can be used to flush your toilet.
Yep. Yeah, that's the 300 level course. We're not going to get into that today, but that is a good thought, something to look at and study.
The treatment of water. So I think I did text Alpine food storage or whatever. Yeah. And they said in Lehigh we didn't have to treat it because it's already treated. Is that?
Water that out of the tap? Yeah. Well, I think that the drops are mostly to prolong the life of the water. But if you're just like drinking it, you don't need to treat it to be able to use it, right away, right? Yeah, you wouldn't need that. But people use the drops to try to make it last long, and they'll use the drops later.
FEMA has recommended that you change your water storage every 6 months, but if your barrel is clean and your container is clean and you're using potable water, chlorinated water, technically you don't need to.
Right, so that was a statement for that FEMA recommends rotating every 6 months, but if you use clean water going in, you wouldn't need to do that frequency. Yeah.
Emergency essentials, cells, and AV mix to put in your 55-gallon drums that they say will make sure that it's drinkable for 5 years.
Interesting. A promise of a 5-year pill. Okay. All right, yeah, last one then.
Did someone say you could leave those barrels outside in snow or whatever if you left enough room for it to ice to grow?
He was saying that he has a family member that has done that and it did not expand. He had a little bit of space in it. It did not burst, but 10% space on the top.
And the plastic won't break down, it's UV.
Well, plastic lasts a long, long time, right? And those are food safe storage containers, so I would not say indefinitely, nothing is, but a long time.
Thanks.
He has 30 of those barrels, and none of them ruptured, and they're outside, and it lasts a long time.
Okay. All right, so we'll be here. You can ask questions. You can come up. We can chat about stuff. But just think through all of these things we've talked about. This is to wrap up. This just happened to be my scripture study that I just came on this yesterday morning. And you know that Moses, by the word according to the power of God, which was in him, smote the rock, and there came forth water that the children of Israel might quench their thirst. That was just what I happened to read the other day, right? And I was like, well, that's great. But what I wanted to close with is, we did this last time too, and I was thinking of you something different, but I just felt like this is the thing. This is what matters most in terms of like all this stuff, like what do I do, what do I focus on? President Oaks has said, when you get an impression, act on it, however unusual it seems or however inadequate you feel in following it, act upon it. There's a reason. You may not know the reason, but blessings will follow to you and to someone else if you hear him. So if anything, you felt impressed here that that's something that our family should have to be more temporally prepared, I would act on that. And if there's just like a question, then I would go and ask and say, hey, Heavenly Father, is there something that our family can do, should do of all of this? And I promise you that things will stand out in your mind that are the right things for your family to be more temporally prepared. And as you do that, I think that we end up being more spiritually prepared for calamities to come. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Amen. Rick, I think that you were tapped to make a closing prayer.